Hi, I'm Colleen Delaney. Let's talk about some fun festive reads. Hi, I'm Colleen. If you're new here on this channel, I talk about books and writing. In the description, I will have links to my newsletter and some of the books I've written. If you hang out and find that you like these types of videos, please subscribe and hang out some more. So I'm not a big holiday book reader, but I do like to read one or two a year. I'm just not the type of person who's gonna have like 20 Christmas, Hanukkah, Yule, New Year's books on my November and December TBR, but I did compile a list of my 5 favorites of all time that I've read. A few of these I've read more than once, and I recommend all of them thoroughly. We're gonna start with the one I've read the most, and that's My True Love Gave to Me. And mine, I lost the dust jacket a very long time ago, and it literally has like crayon on it from one of my kids got into it. But this is a collection of 12 short stories by different YA authors, all having to do with the holidays. You've got some real powerhouse authors in here, so I'm gonna quickly read you just the titles of the stories with the author, and then I'm gonna tell you about my 3 favorites. We've got Midnights by Rainbow Rowell, or Rowell, I don't remember how to say her name. The Lady and the Fox by Kelly Link, Angels in the Snow by Matt de la Pena, Polaris is Where You'll Find Me by Jenny Han, It's a Yuletide Miracle, Charlie Brown by Stephanie Perkins, Your Temporary Santa by David Leviathan, Krampuslof by Holly Black, What the Hell Have You Done, Sophie Roth by Gail Foreman, Beer Buckets and Baby Jesus by Myra McIntyre, Welcome to Christmas, California by Kirsten White, The Star of Bethlehem by Allie Carter, and The Girl Who Woke the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Now, I've made so many people in my life read this book, and everybody has different favorites, but I'm going to tell you about my 3 favorites. The first is Angels in the Snow by Matt de la Pena. I'm going to show you each story has a beautiful illustration at the beginning of the cover. This is a Christmas story for those of you who aren't afraid of a Christmas story that's kind of sad. Our main character is Shy, and he has gone off to college, and he is spending his first Christmas away from his family. It's also the first Christmas since his mom passed away, and he's young. He's like a freshman in college. He is house sitting for, I think it's one of his professors, in like a very nice condo. And when his professor leaves, he says something like, "Oh, sorry, we didn't have time to go grocery shopping before we left." And then he and his wife leave, and Shy realizes that he's basically going to be starving because he has no money to buy food over these next few days. So there's something like a single chocolate bar, a yogurt, and he's trying to make this food last. He meets Haley, a girl who's around his age, who's living in the same apartment complex, and she's kind of afraid to go home, and then they strike up a relationship. I really loved this book a lot. It is pretty sad though, because you do have, parental death and grief and hunger as some of the themes, but it's a really good one. Next, I loved It's a Yuletide Miracle, Charlie Brown by Stephanie Perkins. And in this, our main character is Marigold, and not unlike Shy, her life is kind of a bit tragic at the moment. Not as thoroughly though. She and her mom have just moved into a very small apartment from their house because they found out that her dad had another family, and the other family was like his main family. They were like the, weekend family. So she's going through a lot of grief over that, and she really wants a Christmas tree, but they have no money. And she's been walking past this Christmas tree lot, and I think she lives in Asheville, it's in North Carolina, and seeing this boy every single day and hearing his voice, and she becomes kind of obsessed with his voice because she's an animator and she wants to record his voice for narration. And then one day she just decides to ask him if he can help her find an inexpensive Christmas tree to bring home for her mom. I love this one. Every single person I've recommended this book to has loved that story. So that's like the solid middle of the road, every reader's gonna love it story in the book. And lastly, this one is my favorite out of all of them, is The Girl Who Woke the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is a very odd Christmas story, but if you've read anything by Laini Taylor, that probably doesn't surprise you at all. We're in a fantasy situation, but Neve is our narrator, and she has just aged out of an orphanage on this island. And this island is like a colony that's like a failed colony. Like, it's not gonna last, and that everyone here is probably gonna die. She works at a lace factory, I believe. There's basically no hope for anything here. And she is now being courted by a very evil minister who has buried something like 3 wives already. she goes out into the wilderness, which is very dark and dismal there, and basically prays to a dead god and awakens him. And so he now begins to court her as well. This is the most magical story. I love it so much. I read this, I think, about 6 times. And then I was like, I've read it too many times. But I think as I was putting this list together, I think I'm going to read just that story this week because I love it so much. It's just so beautifully written. I haven't read a lot of Laini Taylor. I read the first book in her series, which now I can't remember what it's called, about the girl who like trades like teeth for languages and stuff. I'll write it out because I can't remember what it's called, but it was good, but I never finished it. I read that right around the time I was getting off YA. But this book and this story in particular are wonderful. This would also be a really fun book club. I made my cousins do it for me as book club once, and it was a blast. Next, if you want to read a classic this Christmas, I have to recommend A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I think it's the best Christmas classic I've ever read, by far. But I have a particular personal reason to love it very much. I read A Christmas Carol for the first time when I was in 8th grade. I went to a Catholic schools my entire life. But so we always read something Christmassy in our literature classes around the holidays. And I was great. I really liked it. But then a girl in my class, her family invited me to go to see A Christmas Carol at the Goodman Theater. And if you have ever lived near or in Chicago, you know it's like a really big deal. And the production's always amazing. And it enamored me beyond belief how much I loved seeing the production of A Christmas Carol. Now, many years later, I watch A Muppet Christmas Carol with my kids every winter, even though it's still a little scary. I mean, it is a Christmas ghost story, but the Muppets make it so they can handle it. And I just love the story. It's a classic for a reason. Next, I have a couple of romances, and let's start with A Poinsettia, Paradise Christmas by Janine Amesta. I actually just read this in November and adored it. So if you're looking for a contemporary romance Christmas story, this is a great one. We have Natalie, and she works at her family-owned coffee shop, and she is a Grinch. She does not like Christmas. She's a Halloween girl. And then we have Mason, who is not a Grinch, and he works at his family-owned Christmas tree farm. And they meet, but they both have very believable reasons as to why they're not looking for a relationship or even like a fling. And so they kind of decide not to do anything about it. Fate happens for plot reasons, and Natalie ends up running a coffee truck at Mason's Christmas tree farm, and then it's like they can't stay away from each other. And we have lots of fun, festive sledding dates and stealing kisses in the barn, and I really enjoyed this. And I thought Janine did such a good job at making very believable obstacles that they had to overcome in their relationship that did not feel manufactured. They felt like true things that happen in relationships, and I loved it. And it had a great HEA. It's technically the second book in a series, but you can totally read it as a standalone. The third one's coming out very soon. I have the ARC, and I can't remember if it's January or February, but it's coming out this winter. So if you liked it, you know, get the rest of the books in the series. They're very fun. Next, I have Walking in a Witchy Wonderland, which if you are looking for more of a Yule story collection, this is for you. So this is part of the Stay a Spell series by Julia Cross, which is about the Savoy sisters who are witches living in New Orleans. This came out, it's like a, what do they call it? A complimentary is not the right word. It's not part of the series, but it came out when books 1 through 3 had already been released. So that's where we are time-wise. Everything that happens in here you just have to read the first 3 books to understand what's going on. So we follow there's 4 short stories and a novella. We have a story from Mateo and Evie, who are from Wolf Gone Wild. We have a story from Devraj and Isadora, who are from Don't Hex and Drive. The third story is Nico and Violet, who are from Witches Get Stitches. And then there is a short story about Livy and Gareth, who are in Practice Safe Hex, or Always Practice Safe Hex? I can't remember. Always Practice Safe Hex. My book's right over there. Which that book hadn't come out yet, so that's more like an intro to their relationship than like an epilogue, which the other ones are. And then we have a novella in here about JJ and Charlie, who are 2 minor characters who work at the bar. And I loved their story. It was very cute to like get their novella. When I got the book, I was kind of like, I don't really care about JJ and Charlie. You like can tell there's like sexual tension between them, but they're not really like main characters. And then I fell in love with their story. It was fantastic. I read this 2 times. I don't think I'm going to read one of these short stories this year, but I might. If I was going to, I'd probably read the JJ and Charlie novella because it's just really fun and like feels very, you know, like a full story told, not like a compliment to another book. But I do love all those books and do plan to reread them all at some point. Lastly, I have a contemporary fiction, not a romance, and it's Winter Street by Ellen Hilderbrand. And I actually just finished this last week, and man, it was a delight. This follows the Quinn family all being on Nantucket for Christmas. Kelly Quinn is the patriarch, and he runs the Winter Street Inn, and the book opens with him walking in on his current wife, who is his second wife, hooking up with the actor who plays Santa at their inn, and him losing it. So then we jump heads in this, which is kind of how all the Ellen Hilderbrand books I've read are like that. You switch narrators. I don't know if she has any that stay with one narrator, but you've got his son Patrick, who is the oldest, and he is in like serious trouble. He is very wealthy, lives in New York City with his family, and he's committed a federal crime. His story is kind of heavy. And then you have Kevin, the next oldest, who has accidentally knocked up his girlfriend, who he is completely in love with, but no one knows he's dating. Then you have Ava, who's the third, and she's the only girl, and she is pissed because her boyfriend was supposed to spend Christmas with her. She thought he was going to propose to her, and then he ditched her, and he's going to like a family party at his ex-girlfriend's house in his hometown. And then the youngest is Bart, and he's not a narrator in this book, but he is from his second marriage, and he is currently deployed in Afghanistan. It takes place in, I want to say 2015, maybe like 2014. It's around then. So it is about 10-ish years ago. You also have his ex-wife, Margaret, as a narrator. She is a very famous like CNN personality, and when Ava calls her and is like, you need to come home, everything's falling apart, she does. Ellen Hilderbrand did an amazing job in this book of having some really heavy stuff. A lot of heavy stuff going on with Patrick, a lot of fear with Bart, and making it still a light read. So it does feel very much like a beach read, which is how I classify her books. I like to read an Ellen Hilderbrand in June to kind of like get me ready for summer. Has the same feeling, but it's winter. So if you want to read a book that's just going to like be relaxing, throw a fire in your fireplace. Don't throw it in there. Light a fire in your fireplace and be cozy under a blankie. This is a great one. It's the first book in a quartet. And after I finished it, I own books 3 and 4. I found them at this used books sale my town has. And so after I finished this one, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get book 2. I should buy book 2. And then I was like, okay, why don't I read book 2 next year? And if I want, I can read book 2 and 3 next year. Read one in November and one in December. And so I did not buy book 2 yet. Also because they just recovered this book like this year. So if you go to Target, it has a different cover. They're like realistic photography of people on wintry beaches, I think. And so I want to get the old version to match. So I thought, why don't I instead just spend the year looking at half-price books and some other used book places to try and find Winter Stroll. And then I can enjoy it next year. And that's all I have for you today. Just a quick list of festive holiday books. If you are still here, please let me know in the comments your favorite Christmassy, Yule-y, Hanukkah-y, New Year's Eve read that you like to read. Maybe you like to reread. Maybe there's a short story you like to read every Christmas. I would love to hear about it. And if you have gotten it this far and do not want to write words, but want to let me know you made it to the end of the video, put an emoji down there for the winter holiday of your choice. You can do a Christmas tree or a Santa or a menorah, or what is like Yule? Yule is kind of like a Christmas tree too. Maybe like a sparkle. Or New Year's, like a champagne glass, whatever. And I hope wherever you are having a nice wintertime holiday festive season. And if you are in Australia, I am a little jealous that it's summer. As always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. And I'll see you soon.